Welcome back to All Green Alike in the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War, Stonewall Jackson's way to the Battle of Bull Run, and we are here at the first Battle of Bull Run, and really the campaign leading up to the first Battle of Bull Run, or First Manassas, I guess it's called. If you watched the last video, this looks very familiar to you. This is the position sort of at the end of turn 2. And we're getting started here with turn 3, July 18th, which is when the real fun starts to begin. A lot of units get freed up to move for the Confederacy. We get some reinforcements, which are just off screen up here. Some regiments from the Union coming in from Washington, D.C. They're going to be able to garrison some of these rear areas, or areas that are about to become rear areas for the Union. We've done the first couple of activations, and I just wanted to check in and let you know that the Confederates won 2 straight initiative checks. And they managed to get Ewell's brigade, who was almost fully surrounded here at the railroad station in Fairfax, and he was able to squirt out and run back to his friends Early and Radford over here. So Confederates dodge a bullet, and that's part of what happens in this game. Ewell, I guess, narratively speaking, saw the Union closing in and managed to prep his unit and get them out in time. So the Union, with Heinzelman down here and part of Miles's division, they now have clear sailing all the way up to Bull Run itself at Union Mills, where D.B. Jones is holding the crossing, and he just got some reinforcements there as well. He got a single strength point regiment, the 8th Louisiana, who marched in support. So we're going to see what happens here on this turn as the Union push on. This is a fairly fresh force down here for the Union, and they've got clear sailing in front of them. And some of these units up here are also pretty fresh. Some of them specifically in Hunter's division, probably going to have to rest and recuperate this turn. And we're going to begin to set up the advance through the north here, through the Confederate positions around Centerville. That is the next objective for the Union that they feel that they need to take, although, you know, they could potentially do a 2-pronged attack here and put some pressure on the Confederate positions. Let's get going. Well, not sure what's in the water here at Bull Run, but the Confederate Army just got 8 straight activations to start this turn. The Union Army, I guess, reveling and basking in their victory, their glory at the Fairfax Courthouse. But the Union, that has scrambled the Confederates into action. They have been all over the place. Beauregard has moved out from his position here. He has taken a reinforcement. He's dropped some units off here in Centerville and moved up to block this northern approach to make sure the Union don't try and flank around and surround that fortified position like they did down here. It's a pretty solid stack in both of these columns, so the Union's going to have to figure out which way they want to approach that if they ever get to go again. And then up here, the Confederates have been really eager to get the Army of the Shenandoah moving under Johnston, and they actually rolled really well to come onto the map. So they are almost halfway to Front Royal Railway Station, and they're moving down these roads and highways through Clark, Frederick, and Warren counties near the Shenandoah River. So they may be entering the battle a little sooner than I had thought, which is good news for the Confederates because they do feel like they're being stressed a little bit down here. I finally rolled an initiative where the Union won, and so this is going to be the Union's first activation after the Confederacy has essentially taken most of their movement that they wanted to do right off the bat. There's such an amazing drama to this game sometimes because you just can't see the future and what's going to happen, and that's exactly what's happened here. The Union trying to stretch the Confederate line north and south, and successfully kind of did that. And then all of a sudden, Heinzelman, who was sitting down in this area, rolled to activate and move, and he rolled a 6, which got him across Bull Run down here in these woods south of Jones's position. He rolled a 6 again. That allowed the units to essentially form up, or at least 2 of the brigades to form up right near Camp Pickens. I mean, they are within spitting distance of 2 miles, basically, of the Confederate camp, which is just hugely problematic. And Confederates didn't see this coming at all. They maybe should have, and I'm, again, learning a lot about the system as I play it, but Heinzelman kind of stole a march across the river and is now suddenly threatening the Confederate supply lines and home base, which is not good. So there have been some emergency moves. You've got Longstreet, who abandoned his position up here at the ford to come down and at least get in the way. You had Beauregard abandon his sort of stretched defense of this turnpike up here, defending against the Union northern push. He's coming back down to try and bolster the Confederate defense. They have got a 5-alarm fire. 4-alarm, however many alarms maximum worry is, they've got that many alarms going because Heintzelman just came out of these woods suddenly without the Confederates knowing about it. And it's completely changed the complexion of everything that's going on here. Now the Union has just won initiative, and Heintzelman's thinking, hey, now's the time. Let's assault. We've got 2-1 against Longstreet. He's got no artillery. Let's assault. Let's put the hurt on right now while we can. So that's what we're about to do. Well, it just goes from bad to worse for the Confederates. The Union, with a +3 on the dice, rolled 9 to the Confederates 3. That was a rout. It was some casualties to Longstreet here, who had to fall back. And Heintzelman and his crew moved right in, right next to Camp Pickens. And so now the Confederates are in a terrible way, and Heintzelman still conceivably could act one more time this turn. His units only have a fatigue of 3. So yeah, maybe misplayed here by the Confederates a little bit by letting the Union get the jump on them. Well, coming in towards the end of the turn here, and the Confederates have managed to put together a scratch defense from all over the map. It's been taking a lot of fatigue to do it, but they managed to keep the supply line open up the railroad to Jones. They were forced to give up Centerville. They could not stay there under the fortified marker. They had to get those units out to reinforce and react to this move by Heintzelman, which was a daring move. So unfortunately, the Confederates giving more ground than they probably intended to this turn, and the Union very happy about that. So Centerville is a wide open for the taking. Tyler or Hunter will be able to move in their next turn. Now, Heintzelman, with the final fatigue point he had on his units, they were going to go to exhausted anyways. He decided to launch them in an assault against Early here. And the roll, not quite as good for the Union this time. It ended up being a 6-5 in the Confederates' favor. Drained some manpower from Heintzelman's forces, pretty small amount, one strength point, and then fatigued Early to maximum. So Heintzelman didn't want to attack here. Beauregard managed to squeeze in here at the last minute with his 4 strength points with some extended marching that actually didn't disorganize him, believe it or not. And he managed to put 4 strength points with Koch into the Camp Pickens, and that would turn into 6 defense plus the artillery that's in there. It was going to be a bad attack if Heintzelman launched an assault against Camp Pickens after Beauregard got in there. He was just a little bit too late. Beauregard managed to outmaneuver him. So Heintzelman thought he'd do the next best thing, try and break the supply lines of the Confederates. Unfortunately, Early held, and now we're in a Mexican standoff down here. We are about to check supply on the next turn, and it looks like both sides are just going to barely be in supply. Thankfully, Heintzelman left Howard's brigade here to cover him off on the rear. They can trace supply back through these roads. So pretty eventful turn, and certainly ahistorical in terms of the way the battle is going so far. Well, here's where we are at the end of the third turn, July 18th, and it's been exciting, that's for sure. Beauregard with his defensive forces here in Camp Pickens. Heintzelman camped outside. They're disorganized, so their strength isn't as high as it was, but this lunge really caused the Confederates huge problems. You've got Jones trying to dig in and build some fortifications here. Probably should have started that earlier. I may have misplayed this. It does take a while to build fortifications in 1861, so I probably should have pulled back to the river a turn before I did and started entrenching. You've got Ewell's brigade kind of caught out in no man's land out here. Tyler managed to catch up to him, and that's going to be kind of dangerous if Tyler wants to make an assault, or if Hunter comes down from the north and surrounds him, or Miles comes up from the south and potentially tries to surround him. So he's got to get out of there. He's got to contribute to the defense. There's a small regiment detachment here at this ford holding it, trying to cover the retreat and make sure the Union doesn't have too easy of a time. And we've got Evans up here with 2 strength points. We've got Bonham 5 strength points here. He's recovered from the battle at Fairfax County Courthouse, so they're going to be able to reform probably behind Bull Run, make the Union come to them. Union, for their part, have nothing in front of them, really. They're going to be able to make some great progress depending on how their movement goes. And not to curse them or anything, but the worst thing that could happen right now would be rain. If we get rainy weather, then that's going to slow everything down for the Union, and actually Heintzelman will be in quite a vulnerable position at that point, because the Confederates here, there is perhaps a counterattack danger here if Beauregard moves out and suddenly Heinzelman's got surrounded on him, and that would be pretty devastating because there's a lot of Union force with him right now. So, you've got to his little lunge put him. It was dangerous, but it now puts him in a vulnerable position, and that's kind of the risk reward you're looking at in this system because combat is so unpredictable and costly. Let's say. Anyways, we're gonna head into the next turn and keep it going. Well, no rain, but after a slow start for the Union, they're finally on the march. They were a little sluggish again to get going today. Don't know whether they're hungover or what's going on, but the Confederates, they got some reinforcements down here coming up the road. This unit is sort of an independent unit. It's not going to be able to function. It's part of a different army. It's only got 2 strength points, but Confederacy might be able to use that to throw some Zocs behind Heinzelman if they want to counterattack. He's got to make a decision next time he moves. Does he want to come this way and reinforce, or does he want to come up this way? Yeah, Confederates also got another strength point from the a North Carolina regiment came up via rail. And speaking of rail, the Army of the Shenandoah making just fantastic progress. They rolled a 6 on their movement. That allowed them to get down to these railroad stations. One of the units actually was able to embark on rail and has moved all the way down to Prince William County. This is B's brigade, and he's got 6 strength points with him. So these are some badly needed reinforcements for the Confederates. They're going to be able next turn to march in here in support of wherever it goes, of wherever they feel is most needed. And the Union, sensing that time may not be on their side all of a sudden, decided that they were going to push the attack while they still had the advantage. We did have most of Tyler's division move up here to this to Stonebridge. This is pretty historical here. Not necessarily Tyler, but certainly Evans brigade with only its 2 strength points here, sort of behind this bridge. The Union thinking they're probably going to want to assault that sooner rather than later. The rest of Tyler's division, there's a brigade here with McDowell. They finally made it to Centerville. This is Schenck. He's got 5 strength points under him. They just wanted to make sure the Confederacy don't try to get any ideas and move out and try and snatch Centerville back behind their lines. And Miles has yet to move. Originally, I was thinking Miles would probably attack here before they're finished building, but they've got a lot of strength points here now with another regiment that joined Jones. So potentially the move is here, although Ewell did manage to escape from his sort of standoff, and now there's also 7 strength points under Ewell's division here. So not a lot of good options for head-on assaults, and I'm not sure the Union necessarily wants to be doing that until they see how this goes and what's going to develop down here. Pretty static down here. The Confederacy doesn't have enough strength to counterattack, and they don't really have the movement ability to they don't have the movement capability to kind of throw the Zocs around here like they need to, given that there's just no roads through this particular part of the terrain. So we're in a bit of a stalemate. Heinzelman thought about maybe using some movement points to turn his flanks, but that would prevent him from recovering from disorganization. So he's probably just going to stay there. Beauregard is feeling kind of the same, as well as this brigade here. So not a lot happening. And then, of course, obviously, we've got Longstreet recovering back here. So that's where we are. A lot of maneuver and some saber rattling, and I think we're going to get an assault up here. Hopefully it rolls well. Well, just an outright disaster for the Union. They rolled for the assault. Tyler tried to get the entire division to assault across this bridge. 2 of the units did not agree with that assessment. That left Richardson's brigade on his own attacking across this river. Union had an overall +1 on the dice. Confederacy rolled this, so we got a -3 to the Union attack, which means that Evans is unaffected and Richardson is going to become demoralized and lose 2 manpower. Well, another assault for the Union here with Miles across the river here, and another command confusion with Miles's command, where one of the units did not participate and only 1 unit got sent across to try and take this hex fully unsupported, and the Confederates roll just an insanely good roll. So that is 2 more manpower lost for the Union, disorganized brigade under Miles, and rapidly throwing away manpower against this line and stalling out the offensive, unfortunately, for the Army. I think probably their best hope now is that they can get another assault off here, which they've gotten a slight advantage on, and roll better and see what Heinzelman can do. Well, there we go. Union finally getting the breakthrough it needed. Tyler did, with the final fatigue point available on the units here, he did launch another assault. He rolled well enough to get 2 units to assault, and that was the difference. to get across. They rolled well. The Confederacy did not roll well, and with the numbers advantage, Keyes and Sherman, along with Tyler himself, managed to get across the river and break through this Confederate line finally, sending Evans himself demoralized, disorganized, in full route back here to Gainesville. So the vice tightens just a bit. Sometimes you got to keep hammering at something. If the first one doesn't succeed, try again. And that is what Tyler did. He managed on the second try to break through that position. Now you can see we're clear on the other side of Bull Run here in the north. And these positions here are going to have to think about what they want to do and how they want to hold them. There's not an easy way for Tyler to come down here. He's going to have to come down this road. I guess he can conceivably just move into Lewis as well. But that would be... This one might not be bad. It wouldn't get any flanking bonus, I don't think, because there's fords here. So not total disaster for the Confederates yet, especially because the Army of the Shenandoah is showing up. So they might be able to beat back this advance in the next turn. So one of the things I'm really struggling with for both sides at this particular juncture is how to resolve this situation that we've got going on here. From the Confederate standpoint, trying to boot Heinzelman out of here, I had the opportunity. I could have moved this regiment, this detachment, into this hex here with all of their movement points to sort of project Zox into 5 of the 6 hexes around Heinzelman and then try and launch a grand assault with Beauregard. Now it's risky because the combat strength is fairly even. It would have been a 1-to-1 attack, but the bonuses that Beauregard gets because he's a 2 tactical rating leader on the attack and from the surrounding, I think would have given the Confederates an advantage. The problem is it's not as much of an advantage. It's not enough of an advantage to be foolproof, and if something goes wrong, that's it. That's probably the end of the Confederate campaign. And I'm really struggling. About whether I want to do it. There's a chance that Beauregard calls a grand assault and we're able to do it, but even then it's not a sure thing, and there's a chance that Beauregard calls a grand assault and then some of the units don't get the orders. Then it's really bad. And so I think it's just too risky to do it, even though I really like to. If this move with this detachment from here to here, going Zoc to Zoc, did not disorganize him, I might think about it. But because there's no road between these 2 hexes, he becomes disorganized when he moves there. So I called that off. On the other side, we've got the Union, and it's probably never going to get better than this, despite Miles's failed assault here on Jones. It's probably not going to get better for them than right now to try and break this position, because he's going to be able to build the rest of this abatis next turn, and that's going to multiply his strength 1.5 times in any future attack. Howard's brigade here is in a position to be able to do something about it. They've got 6 strength points. While his tactical rating and artillery value are both 0, he will be getting a +1 because we've got 4 of 6 zones around Jones sort of covered or in a zone of control. So Miles is extending here. And here, Howard obviously extending here and here. There is 1 unit backing Jones up here, but that leads to a +1 modifier. So Howard would get a +1. Jones would get a +1. It's a 1-to-1 attack, and if the Union can get a little lucky here, they might be able to displace Jones. The other thing is if they attack and do any sort of fatigue results to him, he will not be able to continue building, and that's what they don't want to have happen. So even if it's kind of a Pyrrhic victory for the Union, it's probably worth it. So they went ahead and ran the attack. Now, it can't be an assault because there's no leader here with Howard. But the upside is that we're not attacking across a river, so that's nice. So Howard rolled movement points to see what kind of attack he could do. He didn't roll. I wanted to get 4 or higher to do a prepared attack. Unfortunately, I rolled a 3, so he's just doing a regular attack, but he's got 6 strength points. And so here we go. Both sides have +1. Howard for the flank, and Jones for his tactical value. And we rolled a 2 and a 2, so it's a 3 to 3. It's a flat, even roll. What happens with that? Well, Jones has, I believe, 5 strength points under him. Let's see, he's got 4 there, plus the regiment of 1, 5. So he just becomes disorganized, and Howard, who's got 6 strength points, takes a loss and becomes disorganized. No fatigue changes. So ultimately, the Union unable to disrupt the plans of this Confederate fortification here, sadly, on coming down to the end of turn 4. All right, I lied a little bit. When you take a disorganization, you also take 3 fatigue levels. So despite the Union losing a manpower here against this unit, it is going to cause Jones to go to fatigue level 3. That's going to mean he's not going to be able to continue to build that next turn. And as long as the Union keeps the pressure on, they will be able to prevent him from digging in. So they achieved something pretty good there. That is what they wanted to do. They wanted to make sure that the abatis does not get put up, and maybe Miles next turn will be able to roll again for an assault. And the calculus has changed a little bit as well. There's only now 4 strength points. With the disorganizations, there's half there, which I believe rounds down in an attack, and 3 here. So it's either 3 or 4 strength points in this hex. And so now the Union might be able to get a manpower advantage, which would help them out quite a bit if they were to assault again. And here's a quick overview at the end of turn 4 here, where everything stands. From all the way up in Warren County, where a bunch of the Army of the Shenandoah is going to be embarking or attempting to embark via railroad this turn, all the way down this railroad line. We're going to get a lot of reinforcements showing up in this area for the Confederates, and the counterattack will be on. At that point, the Union trying to stretch the Confederate lines again, with Hunter's division coming way up to the north and trying to swing around down this way into the Confederate rear. That's forced the Confederates to... It's going to force them into some tough choices. And then the one other thing I wanted to mention is McCunn's brigade, who is a late arriver from Washington. I had to assign him to a division when he came on at the very end of the turn. I assigned him to Hunter's division. He's going to do his best to get out here and join Hunter for what will surely be a nasty conflict when the Army of the Shenandoah arrives for the Confederates. And of course, we've got Holmes coming up from the south. He's exhausted, but he's going to continue the march, and we may be able to get something going if he comes up. Let's see, if he comes up this way or this way and comes in right here, Heintzelman's going to have a problem. Well, we're opening this July 20th turn, I believe turn 5, with a bang here. The Confederates received some regimental reinforcements up this railroad from North Carolina and Mississippi. That allowed Longstreet's brigade, who's now back at full operational capacity, to beef up their strength points back up to 5. Confederates won the first activation. They moved Longstreet up these roads to Heintzelman's flank. Heintzelman now flanked on 5 of his 6 sides by units or zones of control. Beauregard then decided, after winning the second initiative, it's time to try and attempt a grand assault. So Beauregard commanded Longstreet to attack. Beauregard rolled for the grand assault. He succeeded. That allowed him to, and he succeeded well. That allowed him to pick 2 hexes. So he's chosen early and himself as the other 2 assaulting stacks. And so now we have a 3-pronged assault on Heintzelman's position, and this could turn the tide of this campaign up to this point. That has been pretty much controlled by the Union for the most part, and the Confederates on this roll have +2. So Union holding their breath. We'll see how Heintzelman's men acquit themselves in the face of this this Confederate push down here near Camp Pickens. We're going to roll that up, and it is a even roll, 3-3. Which is a 5-3. And this is going to be a pretty big attack, too. Both sides have more than 10 strength points, so we're going to see some manpower losses here for sure. That is a +2 for the Confederates, and they've got 13 manpower. They are going to take a loss. Heintzelman is going to take a loss. He's going to become disorganized, and he is going to have to retreat. And for his part, Beauregard is going to have to take a loss, become demoralized, and he will be able to advance. So not the explosive victory that he was hoping for, but a victory nonetheless. And Heintzelman now finally facing some stiff resistance around the Confederate reinforced camp location at Manassas. Well, given Miles's status as fully exhausted because he just tried to do another assault to no avail, ended up just doing nothing, and this river is really causing him problems. And again, he's not rolling well for the assault. He was trying to assault with both units. One of the units chose not to join him, or was confused, or something happened, but basically left Blinker to do the assault on his own, and that did not go well. So now Miles's stack is basically inoperative for the rest of the turn, and Ewell, who had been in the process of building an abatis, left a detachment at his position guarding this ford and saw an opportunity to make a spoiling attack here against the New Jersey regiment that was coming down the road and trying to link up with Miles to provide some reinforcements. So Ewell managed to intercept him before he got there, and Ewell's about to do an attack on him and spoil that plan on the east side of Bull Run. And this could be pretty impactful. If it goes well, we could force this unit to retreat, and then suddenly Miles is going to be surrounded, and Heintzelman unable to help him unless he comes back across the river. So let's roll this up, and I'll show you what happens. Well, here's the final outcome. It was a bit of a skirmish, more of a skirmish than a conclusive victory. I think the Confederates were going to be really disappointed with their die roll. They had a +2 on the roll. They both rolled 2, so it wasn't very decisive. So each side became disorganized, and the Confederates did force this New Jersey regiment to have to retreat from their position. And fatigued them to level 3, so they probably won't be doing anything for the rest of the turn. Now, he could advance if he wanted here, but that puts him a little bit out of position and no longer putting the pressure on Miles, although he would be throwing Zox into these two hexes, but probably not the position he wants to be in. He kind of did his job. He prevented those men from New Jersey from rejoining Miles' division, and now he's going to be here and force Miles to have to make a choice. Does he attack to try and repulse him, or does he pull out of there altogether? So while not the huge victory that Ewell was hoping for, a good initiative move from him to disrupt Union plans. Well, the Confederates got a lucky run of initiatives, and they managed to rail down 2 full brigades. They got Johnston from the Army of the Shenandoah, and 2 brigades all the way down this rail line from all the way up here. Now they're on the front lines. They're going to spend a day reorganizing, reforming, and then suddenly the pain's going to be on for the Union. Meanwhile, we've got Confederate brigade here blocking this creek crossing from Hunter before he could get across, and we've got some cavalry screening Tyler, who is probably not going to do anything today because he's got disorganized units. So suddenly the Union advance is in real danger here of counterattack because Johnston has arrived on the scene. And the byproduct of that, if we look over here, so there's morale for the armies every time units retreat. It takes ticks up morale points on these tracks. And this turn alone, 14 morale points have been taken by the Union Army of the Potomac. Now, each side has a limit to where panic can go, which is 35 here. And if this marker up here ever reaches 35, then the army panics. And there's a host of bad things that happen with that. But most importantly, if the Union Army of the Potomac panics, that is negative 10 victory points to them, or 10 victory points to the Confederates. So they don't want that to happen. But they've already pushed almost halfway up just this turn with the 2 attacks that the Confederates have done so far. Now, every recovery phase, these get cut in half, so they go down by half. So it seems unlikely, but the arrival of the Shenandoah Army has actually pushed the Potomac up to 35. They were at 25 before, and the Union thought maybe they could get them to panic, but now 35 is going to be a tall order. So maybe some reassessment having to happen here. The other sort of thing of note here is that McCunn, who came on last turn, the Union has decided to give him new orders and send him all the way up here to Leesburg, which is the county seat for, let me move this, the county seat for Loudoun County. And there's 1 strength point of Confederate forces here. Hunton, I believe, is the brigade. This has 6 strength points in it. So if the Union can get McCunn all the way up these roads to here to make an attack on this town and take that, then that's some points for the Union at the end of the game. We probably won't see that happen for a couple turns, but there's not really a lot the Confederates can do about that. It's just going to have to be a consistent march for the Union. They're going to get him started this turn. So we could be seeing some action, not just here around Bull Run, but in other parts of Virginia as well. Well, it's happened. The Union's going to make the Confederacy pay for being too aggressive. McDowell, who was stationed here in Centerville, dropped off a detachment, walked down here with Schenk's brigade. Now he's taken the rear here of Ewell, and Miles projecting Zox. This is going to be really ugly for Ewell, assuming the roll goes well for the Union, and McDowell going to do a prepared attack there. Well, that retreat has pushed Ewell into these woods back here behind the Union lines, and he's not in a good spot. He's going to have a little forest adventure to get back and rejoin his friends at some point. End of July 20th. Here's where we stand. Union advance moving forward. Confederates now have a better defensive position. They've gotten some fortifications up as of this turn. It's going to make it real hard to get across that river. Heintzelman holding out down here. Ewell lost on a quest. And the Union trying to figure out what their next move is going to be. We've got 2 more brigades from the Army of the Shenandoah who are going to try and rail up this turn and join Johnston. And Johnston's going to spend 1 more turn recovering his army. And then who knows what's going to happen. So I'm going to call the video here. I think 2 turns in the game is a pretty good showcase of how things happen, how things change, the kinds of moments we have. You know, obviously Beauregard's grand assault on Heinzelman was a pretty big win for the pacing of the Confederacy, the tempo of their operations. And we should start to see a few more counterattacks probably happening as the Confederates get their manpower beefed up. It's going to be a tough road for the Union to get more points. A lot of their big points come from controlling Fairfax County. Obviously, they'll probably get Loudon, but you know, some of the other ones down here, taking Warrenton seems way out of reach right now. Burning some of these railroad stations down here seems out of reach. And the one chance that they had here on Camp Pickens, just they couldn't quite close the deal. So we are heading into the sort of back half of the campaign, and we'll see how it changes and how things proceed from here.